You doing the intro?
No, you are.
I mean,
Yeah, I'm gonna bring her in.
you didn't have to say it with such a disgust.
No, everybody's here, so we do it the way we do it.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is in your hood. I am absolutely Adia.
I'm your girl, Ashley Nicole.
I am the franchise, and we in the building.
This is the quad.
This is the quad, and we are here with a very, very special guest talking about a very, very important topic you guys all are used to. But before we get into
Let's
it,
talk about sex.
let's slow down now.
Oh.
I gotta bring her in.
Oh, okay. It's been that song has been in my head.
Me too. Let people know what we're working with over here. Okay, so let's introduce Dr. Wall. Dr. Wall's in the building. She's originally from Abilene, Texas. She is a self-described Texas girl with Cherokee, Irish, and Creole roots.
All
You
right,
know what I mean? She's a
Creole.
mixed bag. She chose to pursue a career in psychology at an early age. Dr. Wall is a licensed professional counselor. She has a Bachelor of Science in Psychology from Abilene Christian, Masters of Education in Counseling and Human Development from Hardin-Simmons University, received a Doctorate of Education in Counseling Psychology from Agrassi University. She has extensive training in child abuse and neglect and has experience in individual, group, and couples counseling. She also has experience working with domestic violence, substance abuse, and sexual abuse. Dr. Wall's theoretical approach includes rational emotive behavior therapy. I need to learn a little bit more about that. Therapy focuses on resolving cognitive, emotional, and behavioral issues and facilitating individuals to lead more rational, productive, and fulfilling lives. I definitely need to learn a little bit about that. She believes that we have the ability to choose our own reaction to each situation that occurs in life. In addition to her career as a therapist, she also is a co-owner of She Dance Studios, fitness company geared towards geared towards helping women that are victims of various forms of abuse, low self-esteem, and or recovering from drug addiction. And the most important certification that she has, my peoples, is she's a certified sex therapist in the state of Texas, and that's why she's here today. That's why she's here today. Dr. Wall's in the building. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
We here to talk about you. We are here to talk about you.
Doctors here.
Yeah. You are a very, very accomplished individual.
Thank you.
So I was looking at, I love psychology.
Mm-hmm.
You know, can you tell? We talked a couple of times. I love psychology, right? So, I mean, what about it is, because in your bio it says that you got into psychology at an early age.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, how early and why psychology?
I think I was just pretty much bred into it.
Mm-hmm.
Most people that know me know that my mom is a survivor of molestation and rape, and she was molested and raped by two different people, one a family member and one a friend of the family, her best friend's brother. And so that changed how she dealt with everything, how she saw the world, how she interacted with men. My mom ended up having me at 17. She had graduated from high school at 16 years old. She was just done. She was like, I'm smart, I'm done, I'm gonna go sit down somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember being like 1-2 years old, my mom showing me how to sit as a woman, showing me how to carry myself as a woman, how to clean my body. She's very, very particular, and she wanted to make sure that no one would be able to put me in a situation that she had been in previously. And so she tried to give me that knowledge as best as possible. And from a very young age, I was like, I either want to be a sex therapist or I want to be a child psychologist. I don't like working with people's people's parents. I love working with kids, but parents don't listen, and they typically don't do what they're supposed to do for their children. So the kids keep repeating the bad behaviors. So I was like, no, I'm good. I got that out of my system when I worked for CPS. So I was like, I'm good.
Boy.
I don't need that. So that's the initial start into it.
Very, very interesting. Wow. So that's talking about a young age. I mean, how old were you when you said, you know what, I'm doing this for a living?
Probably, well, my world kind of got turned on its head when my grandmother passed away. And so she passed away in 93. I would have been around 10 years old, 10, 11 years old. And so when that happened, I kind of spiraled, kind of went into a deep depression, became a cutter. Nobody knew in my family because I was a straight A student, perfect kid, captain of everything, best grades, no one knew. Like, my mom didn't find out about this stuff until I was graduating from college. That's when I told her. And so I battled depression pretty much from the age of 10, which originally would have been grief. And all the
losing
way,
your grandmother?
Losing my grandmother, because she was like my best friend. Like, I grew up with my mom and then my 2 grandparents. And so I watched my grandmother battle breast cancer. And so anybody that's ever watched somebody die from a terminal illness, you know how difficult that is. And then to be that young and not really understand all of that, it was too much. It was too heavy. So I literally watched her take her last breath. So I wasn't okay. So.
Well, at 10 years old, I mean, during that period of time, how did you, and you said you didn't let them know until you graduated. You were graduating college?
Graduating with my bachelor's.
So, okay, at that time when you were young, dealing with that depression, I mean, how did you deal with it other than the cutting? I mean, did you
So I ended up having a school counselor. Her name was Mrs. Willis, and she was a friend of the family. She was she ended up being my middle school counselor, but my family knew her. So I interacted with her. She was my first, like, for real introduction into the counseling world. I always knew I wanted to be in counseling because I was just that nerdy kid that read books I probably wasn't supposed to be reading, but I was exposed to it. And so she kind of guided me away from the depression and gave me healthy coping skills. That's one reason why I'm an avid reader. You get to check out, go somewhere else. I only read things that's like very fictional, like vampires and superheroes. I don't need to read none with no killing because that's real life. I don't need none of that.
I'm the same way. Even when it comes to like movies, like I'm only interested in like that science, most of the science fiction stuff. Some some nonfiction stuff I like, but
I don't do no horror or no nothing. I don't need to be scared. I don't need that in my spirit.
Right. So you ain't into Michael Myers. They got Michael Myers coming out.
I mean, I might watch it just to complete, what I've already seen, but that's not my thing.
Okay. So do you feel like becoming a therapist and helping people was your way of turning your pain into your power?
Yes. I like to give back. So I come from a family that's full of givers. Probably we need some boundaries in that area, speaking as a therapist, but that's just the way my family was. My mom has taken care of, like, last time I counted, like 21 different children. You know what I mean? Adopted a couple of them. I've taken care of 3 of my godchildren. So that's just kind of our nature. But for me, it also, when I get into those sessions and say I have adolescents come and they're like, you don't understand what I'm going through, you don't know, I can honestly be like, I actually do know what you're going through. I'm a former cutter. Like, I tell them, if I get to a place where I'm lonely or I'm feeling depressed or something like that, my support system knows, come get all these scissors, come get all this sharp stuff. Like, they know I'm going to make sure I'm good. I'm not ever going back to a state of depression if I can help it. So I love to be able to help people get to that stage. And it's a process. It's not easy.
Well, that's a really interesting thing that you do. Seriously. You know what I mean? All of that depression. So let's talk about something that's kind of antidepressant.
Okay.
Let's talk about sex.
Okay.
So, sex therapists.
Release some of that.
Yes.
Speaking of release, so sex therapists. As a sex therapist, I guess I'm just really curious as to what the clients that you help or the clients that you have. Just talking broad terms.
Okay.
What is like the most common issue that you help your clients with when it comes to sex?
I would probably say, because we are technically in the Bible Belt, it's being free in sex. That's the most common reason why people come and sit on my couch.
Really?
Like, I have people who've been married for years and they still haven't consummated their marriage because they have such a great fear based off of what their parents told them before they got married, that you were going to hell and you were going to, like, sex is nasty, your body is nasty. Like, I have people who've not even looked at their vagina. It's yours.
Like grown folks?
Like, yes. Like, never looked at it. Ever.
They never look back at it either?
They've never looked back, front, side, nothing. And so I would say that's probably the number one. The number two would probably be healing from trauma, some type of trauma.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you about, and I mean, of course, I can assume all day, so you can correct me. I assume that your clientele, for the most part, gender-wise, is female.
It's both.
It's both.
I wouldn't assume that.
It's both. And I was kind of surprised when I first got into it because the private practice that I work for, we are minority based. We're all black women doctors. We just expanded to get 2 additional women on board. and they're Caucasian, but for the most part, we're all minority run. Even our front desk, our biller, like everybody's a minority. So when you walk into our office, you're gonna see men, you're gonna see black, white, African, Hindu, like you're gonna see all kind of different ethnicities. And I was like, whoa, okay, I see y'all, because that's just not popular in our culture. Like they tell you to go pray about it, and I'll be like, well, the Lord blessed us with therapists, use us,
right.
So it's a, I would say it's probably 70-30 right now.
70
female,
okay,
30 men.
Okay.
Do you get more couples or individuals?
More individuals, and then couples can sometimes come after, because normally it's one individual's issues that are starting it, and then they're like, okay, can I bring my significant other in, because they need to hear this too, and then you can give us techniques that help both of us.
So go ahead. Do you get couples that are not married couples, like
Both.
just dating?
Both.
Okay.
I get everything.
Would you suggest therapy?
It depends on what they're coming for. So get your life. So
That's what she said.
if they are wanting therapy because it is dealing with something going on within their relationship, I'm definitely going to recommend it. But if it's just that one person's issues, I always agree with working through your issues first, and then we go to couples, because I can't do your issues, his issues, both of y'all's issues at the same time. We have to break that stuff down.
Right. What does a healthy sexual relationship look like?
A healthy sexual relationship is going to be different for each person. So it's going to be based off of your preferences, your partner's preferences, whether that's monogamy, whether that's polyamory, whether that's like you're into other different types of kinks. Like that's something that y'all have to talk about. And that's one of the biggest components is the communication factor. And a lot of people do not talk about sex.
I was just going to ask, with the ratio, who do you find more open to talk about?
Women. Because I have found that women are bigger freaks than their partners.
Really?
Yeah, they just are afraid to talk about it.
So
I would agree.
Hold on. So how do you? So how do you? This is about me.
The drive.
Look, because I've been trying to be.
But is it true that men think about it more?
It technically is not true. You just got to think, like, back in the day when those statistics were given, they were really only testing men in the first place. Like, you got to think, like, it hasn't been that long since we got all our rights.
Right.
Like, the Women's Suffrage March was in 1913. So it's barely 2018 right now. We barely had it 100+ years. So we are still, even in today's society with, the whole Kavanaugh hearing, we're still behind the ball. So I would say no. Okay. I think people think about sex as much as they want to think about it.
Right. That's good.
And it's not necessarily that guy's thing. Okay. So when it
I'm like, as soon as I wake up in the morning.
And okay, so help me, because we've had conversations, you know what I'm saying? And I remember, there was a conversation that we had, and I opened up, because what she told me she was a sex therapist, I started telling her everything.
Everything.
But not everything.
Well, I mean, I'm for
random stuff.
He talked to you about his big dick energy.
No.
BD.
Oh, okay.
No.
He left
He didn't leave with that out.
We haven't spoken recently.
Oh.
That's a new term for me.
Yeah, that's the BD.
We haven't spoken recently. So you baby, lose what I was going to say.
That's good. That might be a good thing. That might be a good thing.
It's not at all. But I guess what I really want to know is, as a sex therapist, like, because I know you said that you don't necessarily do the couples. You'll do individual.
I do couples. I do. I will do that.
You do couples and individuals. But when you're working with an individual, I would assume that your plan is at some point to bring in the partner, right? And then y'all have
group session. Well, couple sessions. Yeah.
Okay. So give me some tips.
What do you want?
Just some random tips on how we can keep
tips.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Tips, like just.
You got to be specific. What do you want to know?
In a relationship, a healthy relationship. Okay, this is what I was going to ask you earlier, because we've had therapists in here. And now we're talking about sex specifically. So do you ever deal with couples or individuals who are already having healthy sex?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
And you help them kind of maintain that, or what does that look like?
Figure out maybe if they want to explore a different kink. And for everybody that's not in the sex industry, kink is like fetishes or things like that. So if they want to go into BDSM, they want to go into acting like dogs. I don't care. You know, whatever they, it's so many
Ponies,
different
40 Shades of
things.
Grey.
Yeah.
You know, so whatever they want to do, sometimes that's what it is. Maybe it has to do with functionality because, you know, as we get older, things don't operate the same way. And
yes,
so
true.
you have to kind of change your mindset to, is it just about me climaxing or is it about the experience? Does it still feel good? Because a lot of people don't ever experience good sex without climaxing. So most women, 70% of women don't climax.
A lot of women that have never had that experience.
Yeah.
And I was like, I feel so sad.
Just not having an orgasm
for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That they've been, it's always been in a situation where, of course, the man
Oh yeah, we
has
gonna get ours.
his situation
Yeah.
and they have never even had
70%, 75% of
high
women
number.
never have an orgasm through penetrative sex.
Penetrative sex.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's like 9 different types of ways you can have orgasms, but penetrative sex is what most people
9?
do.
That's
Right.
what I'm
I
saying.
might
Hold
know
up,
like
man. I know about
5. I need the other 4.
Yeah, we need to go over this
We need to
list.
go to this list
Right.
before this is
Just
over.
saying.
Spider
We need to
73.
check
I don't
it.
have an active sex life. I go through these, especially ever since I moved here, just these spells of abstinence, self-inflicted. I don't want to say inflicted. It just sounds
Yeah,
painful,
that does
but
sound painful.
it's sometimes.
Ain't nobody
But,
dropping dick off.
I can't.
No,
This is
unfortunately,
This is explicit.
nobody is
Explicit
dropping dick off. Trying to get my
No
mind
deliveries.
and life together. See, the thing about good sex for me, you ever saw that episode of Seinfeld where they challenge each other to not have sex, and then for the men it dumbs them down, and then Elaine, it makes her smarter. Like her mind is clear.
Yeah.
She's she's dumbed down. The men are smarter.
Okay.
And they were like, women need to have sex because it's like it cleanse your
Right.
thoughts and your minds. It keeps you, like it's like taking out the trash.
Right.
And
Okay.
Yes.
for men,
Taking
it
a
was the
load off.
opposite. Like when you
Hey.
withhold the sex, it was making them like super stupid.
Really?
So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Baby
Yeah,
batter.
so I'm kind of
Gotta get it off of there.
somewhere in
Oh,
between
man.
there. But I think it's always weird to me that guys never believe that we go months and weeks.
Yeah, they can't
without
believe it.
sex. They
I-
never believe.
I had a
it.
guy ask me that the other day. I'm like, dude, it's been like since March.
I don't
Bruh.
think men realize that we are like multifaceted.
Right.
Men tend to focus on 1 or 2 things. We can think about 6. So it's like, okay, I know I want this, but
Right.
I don't have an opportunity to get that right now from a person that I'm interested in. So I got all these other things to do. It's not that it's not
Exactly.
still on our mind. It's just that we got
stay
other stuff
busy.
to do.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm super afraid of. I just, we talk about adding to the body count. Mine is numerous, but I don't.
You want
I'm
a second
afraid
hand
of
already?
bet.
You want a second hand?
Some toes. I don't want to have bad sex. I'd rather have no sex than bad sex.
Right.
So if I don't
Yeah.
know
If I'm
if it's gonna
disappointed,
be bad,
I'ma
talk about
I'd
you.
rather just not
I'ma talk
even
about you.
do it and just have a V8.
Okay.
Right.
Hold on a second. Hold on.
V8.
Everybody
Yeah,
stop. Everybody
thank you.
stop.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So now I have a question because this is a
Okay.
very important question
Uh-huh.
because we're talking about sex, good sex. We're talking about having sex with or without a climax and all that. Right? So just for definition purposes and the listeners, in your definition, and we're gonna go around the room. What is good sex?
Oh wow.
Well, I think, okay, so let me first say this. In the sex industry, and I'm considered part of the sex industry as far as the therapy side, we are not a black and white industry.
Okay.
We have scales of gray. So there's not always going to be a definitive answer if I don't have specifics.
Okay.
So good sex for one person could be like the connection, and maybe it's more on the spiritual level, maybe it's tantric sex. On another hand, it could be, hey, I'm good at quickies and I just want to, get it done
Bust
and
off,
calm.
right.
Yeah. So it kind of depends on what that person is looking for.
And what you need at the time.
Yeah.
Gotcha,
So
gotcha.
I definitely say it needs to be some type of connection between y'all. It doesn't have to be like a spiritual, like I love you type
Right.
situation, but
Right.
you need to have that vibe and that.
See, yeah. See,
So-
that's I can't do the just hit and go.
A quickie.
Nah, I can't do the
Gotcha,
quickies. I'm a
gotcha.
passionate. Yeah, you gotta give me all of that.
Is there such
Libras.
thing as compatible sex drives?
Right.
Yeah, it definitely is. Unfortunately, in my line of work, more times than not, I see people with opposite. Like one person has a super high sex drive, typically the woman, and then the other person.
Oh, there are more like me?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Oh,
girl,
like
I'm
I'm
right next to you.
You're
I'm
not
being
alone.
honest. Like I think what
Mostly women
a lot
probably.
of the issue is that it's just not politically correct for us to be sexual and sensual people. And so our
You
stuff
say us, you mean women?
women, yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So ours gets pushed down versus men are taught to, go out, sow your oats,
Yeah.
do all
Right,
this other kind of
right.
stuff. But that's not reality.
Fulfill every
Like who you
erotic
sowing your
desire.
oats with? I'm pretty sure every man in the world is not gay. So
Right.
you gonna be sowing your oats with a
With a
woman.
woman, yeah.
So you need to be teaching your daughter and your son the same thing. So if you need to modify that, you might want to modify that across the board.
Right.
I
So
see.
That's good.
So let's get back to, because I'm telling you, I'm trying to get all this as much as I can.
Okay.
You said something about good sex that doesn't necessarily include a climax or an orgasm. That to me, I mean, I'm not saying.
You look confused.
Yeah,
I
no,
need-
yeah,
I need a drink.
Cider.
Can I get a drink?
No, I'm just saying because
Yeah,
in
let
my
me get
mind,
you a
drink.
drink. For
the way that I'm
We gonna hook it
understanding
up.
sex, and as a man, I know I'm limited, but because we bust off 98% of the time.
2 minutes.
So
No.
sometimes 2.5. but I want to have more conversation
so
about
much
this
to say.
Yeah.
sex without an orgasm.
well, you got to
Right.
think of it from this standpoint. If I just said that 70 to 75% of women are not having penetrative orgasms, they're probably not having any other type of orgasm because most men are not as attentive to in foreplay as they are when they are ready to penetrate.
Can you say that again? Just
Please.
Most men
slowly.
For the people in the back.
are
Bruh.
not attentive in foreplay. And the analogy that I like to use is men are microwaves, women are ovens. You got to preheat the ovens
Yeah,
before
the
you
heat-
stick
the
They
heat
be
up,
thinking they
Right.
killing
yeah.
it too.
And
It's
I'm
like,
not,
what is you doing?
yeah, and I'm
you?
not
It ain't
saying
ready. Put that back
Stop
in there.
it.
exactly. And I'm not saying it needs to
Just
be
get up.
nothing
Just get
long.
up.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Get up.
have to
Come
be an
on.
extended amount of time.
What we
But
eating?
if you will start that foreplay session before you want to have sex, it's
Right.
less work you got to do once it's time to
Once
have
it's time,
sex.
yeah.
Right.
But most people don't think smarter, they work harder. So I let them do that on their own. But
Gotta work
what was
hard
your
and play
question?
hard.
Well, no, the question is like, I guess from a man's standpoint, is because in my mind I'm always thinking, okay, well, because I'm gonna get mine, so I want to get my lady off, but it's
I'm gonna get mine.
that's not always the
Get
goal with the
yours.
no,
females,
it's
right?
it's not it. Period. It's not always the goal. Period. You got to
Period.
think there's going to come a time where maybe as you get older, you're not going to be able to
bust?
last.
Okay.
You may not be able to become erect.
I got you.
There's all types of reasons that can come up. But even if you don't do that in your younger years, everything's functioning correctly. There's going to come a time where you just may not do that. So that can be how you touch your woman, how she touches you. It can still feel good. It's going to be a discussion that y'all are going to have together. It's not going to be like, oh, okay, we're just not going to climax no more. Like it can't.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, damn, how you talking
Like,
about? Yo, I ain't busted in 3 days.
No, and honestly, there are some men who prolong and do not have an orgasm until like days later, so that
Days later.
so that they can like go all in a few days.
Right,
So
right.
it kind of depends on what you're trying to do. Like there's a technique called edging.
Talk to me about it. Talk about it.
real quick
Talk
though.
about it.
Real quick.
Oh, what happened? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's a
Edging.
technique called edging where you bring a male or a woman, because women have clitorises, men have penises, and you bring them to the edge and then you let them go back. You bring them to the edge, you
Okay.
let them go
I
back,
think I've heard of that.
and then
yeah.
eventually it's like this
Massive.
whole other level of
So,
orgasm.
Yeah,
does
that's my
that-
experience.
Yeah.
I have
yeah.
okay, that brings me to another question.
Yes, ma'am.
In my recent, maybe not so recent since I'm on air, but I had a situation where the guy kept coming very quickly, like, and he was trying to not to.
Okay.
So does the edging help? Like, does
It
it help them?
It can help, but that could also be due to his diet. That could be due to him smoking, drinking. It's a bunch of different things that
The
go on with that.
smokers.
Like your body has to be healthy. It could also be due if he has some type of medication he's taking for high blood pressure or something. Like all of that stuff.
So
hinders.
women that always think like, oh, it's just me because I'm the bomb. Like that's
Right.
inaccurate.
You can be.
Oh,
Right.
I mean, well, you know.
That lunchbox. Come on.
Yeah.
With the lunchbox.
And then if he's thinking about it too much, he's going to get anxiety and he's going to do it anyway. So he's going to have to he's going to have to train himself.
Right.
Machine gun funk. I say as long as you get it back up, right, you're all good.
Well, that
That's
might,
what I say.
that
That's
might
what
be
I
throwing
say.
her off.
Yeah.
That might throw her
that's true,
off.
because
So
you're trying to get in a
And
rhythm.
see,
Nah, I
that
stay
throws me.
ready.
Okay.
Okay.
Bag to back. I'm like Drake. Shit. Nah, I'm like, you get it up. I'm gonna put it down. I'm waiting on you.
Oh,
Waiting on you.
Let me know when you ready.
Come on, Big Daddy.
wow.
BD.
Listen, is that the first half?
That's the first half. Yes.
This is
I'm-
a good.
I'm
No, we got
sex
15
therapy.
seconds.
Look, I'm learning.
Don't be
so
telling.
much.
Don't be trying to run through.
Hey,
we
we
trying
in
to
the
get
building.
these questions answered.
Edgy.
Yeah.
Sex therapist.
Edgy.
Hey,
we
we
still
got
gonna
the
get to
sex
those 9
therapist in the
different
building.
ways,
Let's
too.
pay some bills.
Oh, I need to
Yeah.
find out the other 4.
Yeah.
Oh,
We do
I'm
need to
guessing.
know
I
those.
need to know all 9 though.
Yeah, we got to talk about that
9
for sure.
ways of
Okay. We're gonna get into it. We're gonna get
sexual
into
penetration.
We'll be right back. This is the quad.
That was
Good
good.
cue.
Did you break it? Did you stop it?
I have the video.